What if the biggest cost in your organization never appears on a financial statement? Every extra approval, handoff, meeting, and follow-up creates an invisible organizational tax, and most leaders pay it every single day without realizing it. This is where process-first leadership begins. Before we ask how technology or AI can transform our business, we first need to understand the processes that create today's results. Because technology can accelerate a good process, but it can also accelerate waste inside a broken one.
Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving straight into a massive yet completely invisible problem quietly paralyzing your company. It's the invisible organizational tax. We're going to diagnose this hidden digital waste and actually show you how to reclaim 10 whole hours of your week from totally useless tasks. More importantly, we'll see exactly how to fix this before you even think about deploying autonomous AI into your workflows. Because look, if you want your organization to truly run at the speed of modern tech, you've got to clear the friction first. Let's get into it.
So, let's start with a painfully relatable reality. Just think about this for a second. Spending 14 hours to gold plate a 20-slide presentation for a simple 2-minute executive decision? That isn't actual work. It's a heavy clutter tax on your team's mental energy. We call this overprocessing, adding way more effort, complexity, or precision than the stakeholder actually needs or values. I mean, we've all been there, right? Trapped in that endless cycle of creating 50-slide decks that literally no one reads, just to hedge against uncertainty. And let's be honest, half of that time is just spent aligning text boxes.
This whole phenomenon, we call it administrative drag. Now, unlike a factory floor, where waste is, a physical pile of defective parts you can actually see, office waste is digitized and totally silent. It's hiding in congested cloud drives, fragmented chat channels, redundant spreadsheets, unread emails, and those absolutely endless manager approval loops. This drag artificially inflates your cycle times and just drains your operational velocity. To put that into perspective, the data shows a simple $450 printing change can easily snowball into a staggering $52,000 systemic cost, all because it gets trapped in a 23-day bureaucratic protection loop. Wild, right?
Section 1. First Lean. Inside the hidden factory. When you really look at the data here, it reveals a pretty staggering statistic. In modern offices, 95% of a document's lifespan is actually spent as waiting waste. Mathematically, if you map out the total cycle time of any corporate process, you've got a mix of value-added active processing time and non-value-added waste time. In these unoptimized administrative workflows, documents are spending almost all of their time just stalling in approval queues or sitting rotting in shared inboxes rather than undergoing any active processing. The people are working incredibly hard, but the process itself, it's just constantly waiting.
So where does this massive waiting waste come from? Well, it stems directly from two key lean principles: overproduction and overprocessing. Overproduction is basically generating unrequested information. Think printing extra copies just in case, or having an AI generate massive reports that literally no one asked for. Overprocessing, on the other hand, is forcing work through totally redundant review cycles, like requiring 4 different signatures for a routine $200 purchase. The person doing all this overprocessing usually genuinely believes they're being thorough. But ask yourself this: if that thorough work is directed at something the business doesn't actually need, isn't it still just waste?
Together, these inefficiencies create what we call a hidden factory of rework. And here is the truly wild part. This hidden factory silently consumes up to 30% of your organization's capacity, and it never even appears on a balance sheet. It's this invisible drain where highly compensated knowledge workers are spending massive chunks of their time on repetitive administrative data entry, navigating a dozen different software screens, and constantly switching between unintegrated apps. You aren't just losing time here, you are straight up squandering human potential on tasks that add absolute zero value.
Which brings us to Section 2. Always leadership, the psychology of structural creep. So the really crucial question the research raises here is, why on earth do intelligent leaders allow this massive drain to persist?
Well, it fundamentally comes down to basic human psychology, specifically loss aversion. See, under traditional corporate incentives, a manager's compensation, their organizational authority, and their career mobility are all directly tied to the size of their budget and the number of direct reports they have. Because of this, managers rationally fear that simplifying processes will inevitably reduce their headcount, which directly threatens their perceived status. It's not malicious at all. They're just quietly resisting efficiency efforts to protect their teams because the systemic incentives actually demand it. They completely understand the math of simplification, but the corporate culture, it rewards accumulation.
And this exact fear triggers something known as structural creep. This happens when teams react to a single, completely isolated mistake by piling on permanent layers of bureaucratic friction. You know the drill. Someone makes an edge case error, and the default corporate reaction is to immediately add another sign-off layer, another form, or, heaven forbid, another committee. Over time, these rules compound, eventually paralyzing the entire company's ability to execute. We essentially stop trusting our people, and we start trusting rigid, bloated systems instead.
Moving on to Section 3, then AI, avoiding the AI shuffle. And this beautifully illustrates the severe danger of just layering modern artificial intelligence on top of these deeply broken workflows. Look, the oldest lesson in the book of process excellence is that if you automate an unoptimized broken workflow, you don't fix it. You simply get a faster broken process. But the stakes are so much higher now. Older automation failed loudly and predictably, which forced a human to step in and fix it. Modern AI agents, however, they fail quietly and plausibly, right at machine speed. An agent can ingest completely incorrect data or make a fundamentally flawed decision, yet present its output in a perfectly coherent, highly professional format that makes those errors incredibly difficult for human supervisors to actually catch. This means leadership absolutely must pay down their workflow debt before handing the reins over to autonomous AI agents. Workflow debt is basically the accumulation of all those unwritten workarounds, tribal knowledge, and redundant handoffs that your employees have desperately built up over time just to navigate your broken systems. AI doesn't magically fix workflow debt. It actually locks it in, speeds it up, and makes it vastly more expensive and complicated to unwind later. If you don't take the time to redesign the process first, you're going to fall victim to the AI shuffle. This is where you're just swapping out legacy tools for shiny new AI-labeled ones, while maintaining the exact same flawed underlying logic. You bring in a slide deck that looks like a major digital transformation, but it's really just the exact same boxes and workflows with a .ai sticker slapped on them. In fact, our sources point out that while 88% of companies are actively using AI right now, only 39% are seeing any actual profit impact from it. The winners are going deep and redesigning their processes. The shufflers are just buying new tools.
Okay, Section 4, the toolkit, reclaiming organizational velocity. Let's shift gears to the real cure and see how this builds into a concrete toolkit to eliminate all this friction.
You can actually start actively reclaiming your team's velocity by implementing 3 incredibly powerful tools that tackle the root causes of administrative drag head-on. These aren't just new software solutions you buy. They are core organizational disciplines. We're talking about the Sunset Registry, the Matrix of Trust, and MVQ standards. Let's break these down, starting with the Sunset Registry. Think of this as a board-reviewed stop-doing database. The rule is simple. You pause any report or output that triggers no real business action. If absolutely nobody misses it in 30 days, you permanently delete it. Gone. Next up is the Matrix of Trust, which establishes speed gate rules. It maps a team's competency against decision risk, which empowers your frontline teams to make low-risk decisions entirely autonomously. No massive chain of signatures required. Finally, we have MVQ, or Minimum Viable Quality Standards. This strictly defines the exact bare minimum level of detail required for a task, stopping employees from information gold-plating and effectively killing that 14-hour slide deck before it even starts.
Finally, Section 5, Conclusion, the AI Agent Orchestrator. Eliminating this administrative drag isn't just a simple process change. It actually requires a complete individual awakening regarding how we lead.
As it turns out, the modern leader's role has to fundamentally shift. We have to move away from being traditional knowledge providers and transform instead into AI agent orchestrators. The orchestrator's mandate is completely different. They take a desired business outcome, decompose it into actual modular work, and then dynamically assign that work across a mixed, hybrid team of humans and AI agents, and whatever combination produces the absolute best, most efficient result. So ask yourself right now, are you still stuck managing manual tasks and rigid human hierarchies, or are you actually designing the fluid execution graphs of the future? Today, accountability is tied to the workflow outcome itself rather than how the labor is physically distributed. You have to specify exactly who owns a workflow, what an AI agent is allowed to do completely on its own, and what specifically still requires a human yes. Ultimately, what you should take away from this explainer is a total redefinition of success. The fastest, most effective organizations in the world don't necessarily have the smartest people or the most expensive technology. They simply have the absolute least friction. By actively eliminating administrative drag, you are paving the runway for true autonomous AI to scale. So I'll leave you with this provocative thought. Look at your own daily workflows. Where is your hidden factory, and what useless process are you going to sunset tomorrow? Keep exploring, keep simplifying, and we'll see you next time.
The lesson here isn't really about money. The real cost of organizational complexity is lost capacity. Every unnecessary approval, report, review, or handoff consumes time, attention, and energy that could be used to create value for customers. That's why great leaders don't ask, who should approve this? They ask, does this create value? Does it improve flow? Does it truly require human judgment? When we remove friction, simplify decisions, and eliminate bureaucracy, we free capacity for innovation, problem solving, and growth. Because in the end, the goal isn't to keep people busy. The goal is to create value.